Cursed Necropolis Rio session 21. It's been a long road, but we made it all the way back into prehistory, I guess. So we're going to continue with the flashback that we started in the previous session, which involves the characters in their very first life as a mummy. And this is the first Sothic turn in addition to that, when the star Sopdet, which that's your name for it, the Greeks call it Sothis, Sirius, is in the position in the sky which holds to your lives anyway, immense occult significance. And indeed, Sothis's rising has brought you back from death in this very first Sothic turn into the year 2371 before Common Era, if I'm not mistaken. And it is indeed the first time you have lived since you died. And you came back with not a lot of memory as far as your previous existence, Irem, what you were. You don't even remember your names. To never mind anything else. We had a bit of an intro last time where we explored the world of the river, the Kemet, the Black Land, and we had an encounter of sorts at the river when Khufu was awakened back to life, apparently being ferried away by the king's soldiers and some creature that was apparently in a leadership position, sort of giving them orders and whatnot, who turned out to be, to Khufu's affinity-laden eyes, to be a lifeless creation, that when Sobek decapitated the creature, it sort of fell into a pile of absolutely rancid meat. And we visited a peculiar individual in the desert, the very borders of Deshret, the Red Land, beyond the civilized peoples of the river. And she held a relic which drew our two heroes, quote unquote, to her. She was hinting at some revelation, some oracular activity. There was a stone circle which we learned matched some of the stars above in the night sky. Khufu has taken the relic from this strange woman, who has promptly afterwards withered to death. And now Khufu knows why, because Khufu has learned a little bit in the time since about the relic, which is the braid of the desert, which is the magic in the braid allows you to survive on very little, indeed almost no food. And she had not eaten and has passed on. And Khufu has performed a sort of desert burial for this woman. And this all took quite a bit of time, as we dried bits of the body in the desert heat and whatnot. And we ended up with Khufu has a token of this woman and her strange words that she spouted, and the dance that she did, and the songs that she sung, and that is the preserved hand, which Khufu now has as a talisman of sorts. But we ended the session with Sobek leading the two to what seemed to be like an ambush trading party, which had been killed a long time ago in the desert, and they well pilfered some possessions from the dead, which Khufu then buried as well. So our two protagonists are now clothed in garments. They have some implements of war that they picked up, and the lure of Gefer, the sun scarab's path, has tugged them towards the other side of the river where the city of Nekeb lies, which is where we will jump into. So I've moved a token there to track us. So currently we started in Neken here on the other side of the river. Neken, to contrast with Nekeb, is Neken, sorry, was a city of some 2,000 individuals spread out in the area. A lot of those farmers. Neken was a city that you could tell was more glorious a long time ago, but it has since become dilapidated and decrepit. It doesn't have many stone buildings, but what it does have are quite glorious, including a particular temple to. Let me refer to my notes here. Oh, a temple to Heru, the nameless falcon. That you remember that Heru is a name for the nameless god. So they have some elements which are well, remind you of a more glorious age that this city no doubt experienced some time in the past. However, as you cross the river and head towards Nekeb, as evening falls, it is not yet night. The sun is still setting in the west, and you approach Nekeb from the river's bank. The city itself is much larger than Neken was. I'll just give you a little bit of the detail, which doesn't really, it's not picked up by Sobek or Khufu in this way, but Nekeb has maybe around 3-4 times the people in the city than Neken did, so around 6,000 people. These are quite high numbers in this day and age for a single sort of urban area. Never mind if there's of course there's fields and whatnot outside, so not everyone's in the city all the time, of course, but the city is surrounded by a vast mud brick wall. It's tall, it's broad, very defensible structure. Neken did not have this. Neken was sort of a remnant of a glorious city, which has become a dwindling sort of farming town. Nekeb seems to be doing quite well. The mud brick wall, quite well maintained. It has some murals painted on it in devotional styles. You see a number of people milling about as you approach. There is a what seems to be like a family. There's a man, woman, probably married, and a number of their children, and they are engaged in some kind of lamentation. You think perhaps they are wailing and singing. They're all wearing quite fine clothing. You think maybe these are nobles, and there is a body all wrapped up in funereal garb and bandage on a litter. So the sort of like carrying device of the nobles around here. And there you get the idea as you approach and you start hearing the words. They are praying to the gods to welcome this. They're saying grandmother into the afterlife. and they're sort of like recounting all her deeds as they wail and sing. And it's not just a lamentation, it's also a celebration. There is, of course, crying and a lot of emotional miasma around the whole deal. There's some peasants who are like staying further away. They're looking at the display there, and eventually they stop their efforts, and the family sort of motions, and there's what amounts to like pallbearers come and pick up the litter, and they start carrying the body away into let me so if Nekab is here where the dot is, they are taking it further in this direction, so away from the city. And the noble family follows a distance away. And yeah, this is something that you can see and hear as you approach, unless you just like run in.
Well, I'm not planning on running in. However, whilst given the fact I'm still sort of on fairly high secam, the sort of emotional outpourings sort of just like wash over me and don't really leave an impression. However, the fact that they're recounting the deeds of this person strikes a chord with me. So I'll probably try. I'm not going to run in because I think I've got enough. Even at this stage, I've got enough respect, not just to like stick my bigger resin size 10s in, but I will try and like drift a little bit closer, just see if I can like hear some of the recitation of the deeds of this person who is now passed. Although, as I say, the sort of outpouring of grief will seem strange to me because I'm like, this is like, there's no point
Yeah,
grieving it because this is inevitable. This is what happens to like everybody. It's just part of the journey.
this is what's supposed to happen.
Yes.
They are they're indicating that the grandmother, quote unquote, um, apparently was a priestess. So they're sort of recounting all her devotion, like the good that she did in the service of the gods, and they're asking the gods to welcome her with open arms into the West, uh, with the knowledge that she served them in life as best as anyone could ask her, and she was a servant and will remain so in the afterlife. So basically, they're sort of grieving the fact that yes, she died, but they're celebrating the fact that she is come onto you as a servant in the afterlife as well. Now,
I think I'll probably be sort of like nodding along to this because whilst obviously these sort of human gods are a little bit of a grey area to me. The idea of a life spent in service does strike a chord to me. After all, and that seems like a very comforting concept to me. You know, having a duty that you are to perform and sort of dedicating your all to that. That seems like a very worthy thing to me. And as we've already established, I tried to find out a bit more about Sennifer, the old woman, to so that her deeds wouldn't die with her. So I'm probably sort of nodding along, like very slightly, sort of like with an approving look on my face. 'Cause it seems like they're doing what I consider to be like the right thing. They're trying to make sure her deeds don't die with her. And whilst this grieving is a bit strange, maybe it's necessary for them, but they're at least sort of acknowledging that her passing is sort of part of the process, and it's part. Death is an inevitable part of life.
and in just so that we don't forget, 2016. Isn't it interesting that in these very early days and years we should encounter so much of this? They are quite preoccupied with their mortality, where you would eventually learn that you need not to be like that. I find it entertaining. But this all would serve in time to guide you forward. And then we move on. So the procession heads off. They were beyond the mud brick wall. They were intent on going somewhere, presumably to the necropolis, but that's maybe not in your sort of conception, really. But they're going to take the body somewhere. So Khufu can infer that they're going to bury the body somehow.
Now, previously, we sort of felt a pull that sort of like pulled us towards Nekab,
Yes.
didn't we? Are we
Yes.
still feeling that pull?
Yes, it is leading towards the way that these apparent nobles are heading.
Okay, so I think I turn to Sobek and I'll say, again, still in a slightly sort of flat way because I'm still sort of fairly high second. I'll say it would appear that the road we follow leads in the direction that the funeral procession is taking.
Kind of close my eyes for a second and feel the draw of this thing. It would seem so, yes. Fascinating that they adorn these fallen people so much. It seems very different to how we saw the prophet perish. I feel like I'm grasping at a straw that I cannot hold.
Their way is different, but I take some small comfort in the fact that the person, and I indicate the funeral bier that's being carried away, this person they speak of has not simply been forgotten as they pass to the west, that at least in some small part their deeds will be remembered. After all, when we all leave this place for the next part of our journey and we are forgotten, it is only our deeds that will remain behind us.
Our deeds and those who we touched.
Indeed. But since it seems, although we are somewhat different, there are, as you have said, similarities between us. Since it seems we are brothers of a sort in this experience, I would suggest that we follow the procession at a respectful distance and see where this road leads us.
Much can be learned. One has the ears and eyes to hear.
Very true. Let us follow.
So you follow it's a very modest funeral procession, to be honest. It's the family and basically their employees.
Do I notice? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No.
So obviously when I met, OG Kofu in first turn, he was being carried by some weird undead things.
Yeah, Khufu was basically cargo on a reed boat on the river that was being used by a number of the king's soldiers and also their leader, who was kind of dressed up nice, but when you killed him, turned out was kind of a rotting meat creature.
Yeah. But I instinctively could tell something was off about him.
Oh yeah, you could tell that with your god side told you that. Yeah, your god side told you that Khufu is like you, and it also told you that this creature was not okay.
I'm just gonna kind of scan around looking for anyone that, I don't know, like just would seem similar in some way. I'm not using my god sight at this stage. I'm just kind of scanning around because I don't really understand it at the moment. Because god sight kind of came. I used it, but it kind of came on at the right moment.
Yeah. You don't notice anything in particular now as you're walking. Maybe you'll catch a glimpse, like one of the gates is still open. They will probably close it for the night, but it's still open because it's not yet night. And you will have seen as you pass and follow the procession that there are more folks inside Nekeb that wear the similar sort of garment that the king's soldiers did, which, they're the king's soldiers, so probably that's
Makes sense.
but you'll that's that's the only similarity you can pick up.
Yeah, I'm sort of like, I've got. I think we got weapons, didn't we?
Yeah, you if you wanted to, you could have like a very early on axe type thing. You could have a spear, knives.
Yeah, all I've got is like a small, almost like ritual, like very simple, like ritual knife. I've taken it more for ritualistic purposes rather than as a weapon. And so since I've got the big braid around my belt, around my waist like a belt, I've just got like the knife like tucked into that, and obviously these sort of robes that Sobek sort of scavenged for me from the ruins of the trade caravan that we came across. But aside from that, I don't really. Aside from the braid and like a knife, I don't really have any possessions.
I kind of want to do like a little detail on the robe, just for my own amusement.
Yeah. No, that's why we are here.
Yeah, just like it's got like just like a few little like cuts and tufts in the robe, just like slight damage. And I like to think, because obviously we're tied to fate in some way, that it sort of reflects the constellation of where Sothis would be at our awakening. Like I like just like a little. If we were aware of it, we could spot that. But just a little kind of. If you looked at it like on a flat surface, it would map out a constellation.
Yeah, let me look that up so that I don't need to guess. So the star Sirius is Canis Majoris.
Because I like to think, John, your thing in the future where you can like clothe people in a certain manner, you've always had it, but you've only at some point you consciously learn how to do it. So even though I've gabbed you, like there's a slight tint to it.
So it is the prominent star in the constellation, the modern constellation. That is, this might be something entirely different, but to our eyes, the constellation would be Canis Major, or Canis Major. the greater dog is the one where Sirius is. So yeah, there's this star pattern on the death wound marks on your robes that the person that used to have the robe died.
Possibly, yeah, like the battle marks or something.
Yeah,
maybe like on the back or like across the torso, maybe.
Which is that still tracks. Like your death wounds spell out the constellation of Sothis. Crazy how nature do that.
If we manage to, if somehow we meet in a Risen in this time that actually has their shit together, they might notice it. Like they might pick up on that. You never know.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll meet an astrologer who's very much up on their shit.
Yeah. But yeah, I just that amused me, that idea.
Yep. So you follow, and the sun starts to set. There's a sort of heavy yellow, orange, red tint now as the sun just sort of sinks into the dunes in the west, and you come upon a necropolis some distance away from the city itself. And you can tell it is quite old indeed. There are signs of decrepitude quite heavily here and there. It's clear that some of these things that have been built and erected here have already been forgotten and or scoured kind of into meaninglessness by the desert winds. And you enter the necropolis. There is a very modest, what they call. Uh, Let me refer to my notes here again. Words. Where is it? Yeah. So projet. I'll put that in the chat. There are structures called projet, which is you to your ears. If someone were to say this, you would know the rough meaning to be house of stability or house of eternity. So these are tombs constructed from mud bricks. It's like a one-story, not that high at all, house made from mud bricks with sort of inward sloping walls because it's not meant for people to live in. And there is indeed a burial chamber accessible from inside. So this is the sort of above ground structure, very sort of modest size, mud brick sort of epitaphs. And then, is that the word? Am I making things up? No, would be talking out of my ass here. No, that's the no, that's not it. So it's it's a small mud brick house. The noble family is heading that way. There's a person who runs ahead. They open the door, made from I think at this point it might just be actually without a door. So it's someone runs in and lights a torch inside, and yeah, they head that way. However, you feel being pulled further into Necropolis. This isn't too far into the area at all. It continues further to the east, but the family is heading to what is obviously a sort of built for purpose, for this particular purpose, new tomb structure.
I think as we head into the necropolis, and the sort of pull that we're feeling is sort of beckoning us beyond those. Sobek will probably notice that I look a little bit conflicted, because obviously I know that we should be following this force, this beckoning, but I'm also very interested in the sort of funeral goings on. So I look a little bit sort of conflicted.
Do you need to stop?
I know we should continue on, for that is where fate or whatever force moves us, beckons us, but I find the ritual that they are undergoing, and I gesture to indicate the funeral procession heading into the tomb, I find the ritual that they follow very interesting. It speaks to me.
I will be frank, I do not understand its significance, but it is curious.
I do not claim to understand all of it yet myself. Everything before awaking on the barge is still unclear to me, but there is something about, if not the way they are going through this ritual, but the sentiment behind it. Something about it feels comforting and familiar to me. But I know we must go on. And I sort of gesture for Sobek to lead the way.
The future me may see some irony in this, but this is true. But sometimes to understand the nature of something, you must stray from a directed path. You must take a question to the end of the road. It's a sense I have that the search for knowledge would be rewarded. If you wish to see more, I will accompany you.
If I had more memories and more information, I may be able to better judge whether following this path that seems laid out before us is indeed the right thing. But since we started following the path before we came across the funeral procession, I believe we should first follow the path to whatever end it leads and resolve that issue before moving on to another.
Very well.
Which is, I would like to observe what is going on.
I'll turn and start heading back towards the whatever it is I'm looking for.
Yeah, further into
so further into the necropolis.
Yeah.
So you wander further in, and the further you go away from Nekheb, the older the structures seem to get, more worn down, more just buried in sand. And then it... Oh, Sobek? I presume you're still there.
Yeah.
Yep. So you see a sequence of pillars, multiple rows of them, some of them heavily buried in sand, but still defiantly rising up. Something... It's like entering a very hot room, like something just like envelops you, and you realize that's, especially Sobek, you realize that's the sense that you got when you realized that Khufu was actually arising, being buoyed up by Sekhem. There are not one but two creatures infused with Sekhem, such as yourself, further on into this area, which has these like half buried, half visible pillars.
But they are separate to the thing we
sense. Yes, and that is a very good question. You pondered this. You feel that there are creatures there with Sekhem. The Kefir is pulling me that way, down into the... Oh, and there you see it. There's a tomb entrance which has an opening, but it too is half buried in sand. The sun scarab's path is leading down into the tomb on the top of the sand here, amidst the pillars half buried by sand. Two creatures with Sekhem.
I sort of half turned to Khufu as my head sort of turned to him, but my body sort of laser focused at the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
I sense the thing that draws us is down there, but do you feel that they're burning? Can you also sense something else pressing upon my I don't know what to call it, my
your awareness, perhaps.
Awareness, yes.
I'm assuming I sense the Sekhem as well.
Oh yeah, you sense it. You don't have the previous experience that Sobek did,
yeah.
Especially, but you've been around Sobek. It feels like there's more Sobeks there.
Yeah.
I'll say.
To be fair, there was a lot going on in that scene when I sensed Khufu waking up. So
I'll say I sense something. It is similar to the sense that I get of you.
Do you think they're guardians of this place? Like soldiers, like the men we see with weapons, they call them soldiers and kingsmen.
It is possible. I believe we should investigate further before rushing to any judgment.
This is true.
And just to check,
you did not attack me.
Just to check, I've understood this correctly, Alice. Are the two creatures like in the tomb that were being pulled towards?
No, that's the thing, right? The sun scarab is leading you down into the tomb because that's where the relics are.
Mm.
The creatures bearing Sekhem above ground, somewhere in the field of pillars, half buried in sand.
I believe, given that the other creature we faced was a threat, it would be wiser to investigate them before moving into the tomb. Since at least if they prove hostile, at least here we are in the open, we have room to maneuver, whereas if they come upon us while we are unaware, in the tomb, we may be at a significant disadvantage.
I sort of look at my spear, and then I reach down to where my wound was. I do not know the means of combating these people if they are like us. I took one of these to my. I sort of just gesture at my abdomen. I felt nothing.
As I say, I believe we should investigate. If they are more like us, we may be able to discover more. If they are hostile like the other creature we met, then we will at least not be trapped in a tomb when we face them. Since we know that we managed to kill the creature that we faced before. So if they are like that, they can be killed and sent to the west. If they are like us, who knows? We will not be able to make any further plans until we've established.
I'm honest. I am torn. I feel a deep need to require this. Whatever it's down there.
I can sense it too.
And yet,
as I say,
I also think that you were drawn to that thing gesturing at the band.
Indeed.
What if these things, or whatever they are, whatever we are also drawn? What if they try and take that from you? What will you do?
I will attempt to prevent them from doing so.
I sense the same. That's why I feel maybe we should rush to get this item.
If you wish to enter the tomb first, that is fine. I will follow.
he does feel torn. I wanna go get it. Yeah. I need it. If they come for it, then at least I have it.
So who's going where?
I'm going into the tomb.
Okay, you're going into the tomb. Khufu, you're going...
Tomb of Horrors. Well.
Tomb as well? Okay. You go in. It has recent tracks that the wind hasn't blown off. You head inside. It is quite dark indeed, but you smell the scent of incense burning.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the crackling of fires deeper in. You head there through dusty hallways. Again, just it might have actually been sort of excavated from the sand because there's still a lot of sand everywhere inside it. But you can traverse the corridors, and you see what amounts to like living quarters in one of the side sort of alcoves where a person could be. You see a cot where a person might lie. There's a rudimentary chair.
Is there like food and drink? Like someone could actually live here?
I think there's beer in, and this is where I don't know how they stored it. Maybe there's a casket of beer.
My knowledge of ancient Arem will really help you, and I know
yeah.
they store
You tell me
finest.
how they store beer. But there's fresh beer inside, and further in, unless you want the beer, just this is what we came for. You head in further and come upon what looks like a stone door that has been pushed aside to allow access from the inside. So if you're entering this way, there is a door that is how am I doing it? So there's a door that opens towards you as you approach it. It has been pushed ajar from the inside. Heavy stone, not meant to be opened by any mortal device that you can tell.
As we see that, I say to Sobek, perhaps someone like us rose here and pushed the doors open as they left. I believe you were wise to say that we should come here first. I believe we should press on into the chamber beyond these stone doors. But as we're doing that, I'm going to make sure I've got my death sight on, and I'm going to like keep sort of glancing back and like be on the lookout, I suppose, for any sort of sense of the secam of these like creatures like coming closer.
I know this is going to sound like a D&D mindset kicking in, but what's the illumination like down here? Can we see in the dark?
No. there was light before. You heard the crackling of fires, which I realize now I didn't mention. There's some braziers burning in the corridor as you approach.
Right.
And there's one in the alcove with the bed and the beer as well. But here inside, there's none of that beyond these doors.
That's why I was checking, because I'm gonna sort of start using my spear as a kind of just a test as I move forward, just to see.
So you're every, let's say you take 10 steps, and then
nice.
you tap the perfect square.
Yeah, we're looking for like anything like like objects I'm walking into. Make sure.
So you can still see like a sliver because the light reflects inside from some distance away. Still, you can still see somewhat inside, but it's a tomb chamber, and you can see in the sort of half light inside there are 3 heavy sarcophagi, ornate, and as you sort of inch in to see what's going on, you can also see 3 pedestals sort of at the head of each of these sarcophagi. Like when the sarcophagus ends towards the back wall, that's where there's a sort of pedestal sort of almost above each one of these sarcophagi. All of them are open. The lids are on their sides, and when you enter, you see 2 absolutely ravaged bodies. It's a stretch to call them bodies because there's not a lot left, but there are withered corpses, of which there are, let's say there's an arm, a bit of the torso, like half a neck and half a head left of one, and like a midsection and most of one leg, and maybe, let's say, an arm of the other corpse. And you can definitely tell like that's one corpse and that's a different corpse.
Okay, so as we see these bodies sort of like moving as softly as I can and staying in the sort of shadows of this dimly lit chamber, I'm
Very easy.
Yeah, I'm going to move across towards the bodies. I'm going to, since I have like investigation, like autopsy speciality, I'm going to have a look at these bodies, and I appreciate it'll be very difficult because, as you say, due to the condition of them. Yep. But I basically want to have a look at them and see if I can get any idea of sort of how they were dismembered. I mean, was it like something's teeth that tore them apart? Were they like cut by a knife?
No, big teeth.
Okay,
big, sharp teeth.
So as I'm examining the body parts, I'm going to say to Sobek, I say, these bodies appear as though some great beast had torn them to pieces. And obviously, still with my death sight on, I'm going to sort of have a look around, see if there's any like lingering spirits or like death essence sort of floating around.
Give me a D10.
D10, okay.
Just a chance roll.
That is a 10.
You bet your ass there are. In fact, well, you can also tell as you like, oh, there's a great beast that has been doing this. It's also apparent to you that because of the amount that's there for you to investigate, the said beast probably ate the rest because it's not here. As you come to these conclusions, you start hearing voices from the walls, and soon enough to your death sight, you can start seeing shapes like push through the wall and the ceiling. Not so much the ceiling, but maybe the ground of the tomb chamber. And there are echoey voices which go something like, "Go, go, go. Away, leave, master. No." And you can tell they're doing a much more dramatic sort of expression with their corpus, their ghost body. They're sort of like tearing at their hair, sort of like clawing at their own ghost flesh in agony, and they're telling you to go away.
What language are they speaking?
Iramite.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to them, look at these shades, and which I presume Sybek can't see.
Oh no, Sobek has no idea about any of this except the voices. You can hear the voices. If
and in Iramite, and with a very sort of like no nonsense, sort of confident voice, I'm just going to say, if you are trying to frighten us to leave this chamber, you are wasting your time and energy.
Yeah, they obviously hear you, and they sort of like fall down on / through the walls, and the ground is like wailing, ah! Shrieking in horror, and they go away at that.
I love this has happened, and I have literally no idea.
You only hear the voices. You only hear the shrieks and the whispers of like, "Go, go, master, away." but Khufu is talking to the air. So
who are you talking to, friend? What?
It would seem the shades of the departed do not rest easy in this place. If you listen, I'm sure you can hear them, but I can perceive them.
Do we need to be careful? Can these things harm us?
They are faint, but faint shadows of what were once people. I do not believe they can harm us besides trying to frighten us away. You may have heard them screaming as they retreated once I told them that would not happen.
I wasn't sure where it was coming from.
I believe had they possessed the means to harm us, they would have done so rather than simply retreating when I spoke to them.
This place we are is full of wonder.
Indeed. And as we're sort of looking around, are we getting any more of a sense of where this sort of like, where the Kepha's sort of pulling us?
Yes. The pedestals at the end of these sarcophagi at the back wall.
Yeah, as I'm talking to Sybek and I'm explaining what's going on, I'm going to head towards these pedestals.
Yeah, so there's two here. One pedestal is empty. One item per on the other two. There is a stone inscribed with something. You don't think it's Iramite because you don't recognize the symbols on it. It might be something else entirely. But there is a sort of stone globe that you can fit into your like one hand. You can grab it like this. And it is inscribed in its entirety with some symbols that you don't understand. And on the other pedestal, there is a shaft of wood onto the end of which it's inscribed. There's a highly detailed scene engraved on it, but we don't have the lighting here to see. But it has engravings on the shaft, and at the one end of the shaft, there is a large 1/2 of a jawbone with most of the teeth in it. It comes from some kind of large predator, maybe, and it has most of the teeth in there. The teeth that are not there, the original ones, have been replaced by shining you think black stone which glitters in the half-light of the tomb, and those stones, those like stone fangs, have been fastened with what Khufu will immediately realize to be like tendons from a creature, which the tendons themselves are also like beaded with this dark, shiny stone. But it's, for all intents and purposes, to us, it kind of looks like a hand axe sized thing, except there's no axe blade. There's a jawbone with teeth.
So it's like the size of a hand axe.
Yeah, it's the size of a hand axe, except the blade part is like one half of a jawbone of some great predator.
Well, I think I found the relic for me. I'll take the necromancy axe for 10.
Alex. Yeah. So Khufu,
I'd sort of pick it up and experimentally, like,
yeah,
test the weight of it.
Yeah, that calls to you, and you reach out, you grasp it, and Sobek, you feel the same call from this stone orb.
I'll pick the orb up gingerly. Like, I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure why I want it. I'm just kind of like...
It feels familiar to you on some very fundamental level that you can't really like put into words, because it's almost instinctual. And it is.
I'll say to Sobe, because he's like picking up the stone orb, and I've realised there's inscriptions on that, and there's like a scene carved onto the bone axe I've got. I say perhaps we should take these out into the light so that we may study them more carefully.
Right, and I'm just kind of like, I don't acknowledge you for about 20 seconds. I'm just staring into it, just like intensely. Then I kind of blink and think, yes, yeah, you're right. Curious thing, no. What do you think happened here?
It would appear as though these people, perhaps tomb robbers, who knows, were set upon by some great beast and destroyed. Perhaps the creatures we sensed outside.
Are we tomb robbers if we take these things? Is that how it works?
I cannot claim to know. All I know is that in the same way that stone orb called to you, this calls to me.
Okay. Do I still have some of those writing implements that I had earlier in the last session?
Sure. But I'll say you have one use left.
Yeah, I suppose I'm gonna write out a note.
I owe you one.
I don't understand. Like I don't understand the draw of these things yet. So I feel like taking it from someone else feels wrong. Somehow. Desecrating the dead, somehow that instinctively feels wrong. Maybe that's Khufu's retroactive influence from the future. He's like, I just leave a note, just like Spacey. I guess it would be an Eremite, or I know the native language, but can I write the native language here?
You haven't spent a lot of time studying how they write it, so I would say currently that's a no.
So yeah, if I can write in Eremite, I'll just write out notes saying, I've taken this thing here. I do not know why, but I'm drawn to it. I apologize to anyone who this belonged to, and any creature or guardian here that thinks, that I mean ill will. Just kind of write it out. And I just kind of look at it. What am I going to sign it as? And I don't really know my name.
They called you friend in Necken.
And so I'll just write friend with the spear.
That's descriptive.
Yeah, that's all I can think of, and then I just kind of put it in place.
On some, again, instinctual level, you feel that there is an eldritch power in the stone, but it is
what I'm holding.
Yeah, when you're holding it,
right.
Because this is much as like the braid and the jawbone implement that Khufu has. He has an instinctual understanding and draw to them because ultimately that is his own magic. the magic of his guild. You feel the same with the orb. It is a text relic, and you understand that it holds some form of occult power, but you also understand, even though you don't know the details yet, that it needs to be it takes some effort to coax it forward from the stone. So there's no chance of you accidentally or quickly sort of pulling out whatever power is in the stone. It needs more elaborate coaxing, which you will be able to understand going forward. But for now, you know that you cannot call on the power of the stone quickly. That is.
Right.
Whereas Khufu, you understand that where are my notes here? So it is a lion's jaw bone, in fact, the one half of a lion's jawbone. And the relic is called the lion's jaw. And you understand that it has some aspects of a lion as a hunter within it, and it will assist you in that manner should you choose to use it as a hunter would. Which is to say, it has a very particular purpose, like relics do, and that is it. It is for, well, hunting and what results from hunting, so death and killing.
So I think as I'm sort of looking at this and I'm realising this as we're a bit closer to the light, and Sobek's sort of fretting about he doesn't know his name to sign at the bottom of his note. I'm going to say you are correct. It will make it far easier for us to speak to each other if we have a name via which we can call each other. I would suggest that I will call you Ben, which, if I remember correctly, is a mound that rose from the deeper waters. And I would suggest you refer to me as Nefer, which, if I remember correctly, is the base upon which tombs rise.
How religious was Sobek? Now, keeping in mind that Irem was a theocracy where you had no choice, but were you attentive in your religiosity?
You know, I think Faye has a sense of irony. So I think I probably would not have been as religious as you expect him to be due to the way he speaks to, say, Kazma in modern day.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I think I interpret it this way. Is we talked before, and I don't know if we've talked actually on stream, as it were, that he was an alchemist at one point, or that's as far as we know in the future.
Yep.
And I think possibly his time as an alchemist may have jaded his view of divinity up till the point he became an arisen. If that makes sense. Because he met.
Do you want to, you yourself, if you have ideas on this topic, do you want to establish now, or maybe in the next session, whether Sobek was an alchemist when he got made into an arisen, or a scribe?
He was definitely a scribe when he got made into an arisen.
Right, cool.
But I think he had a past at least.
Oh yeah, sure. So I just wanted to clarify if you had ideas on that, because that's something I'm very happy to leave into your hands now. So you like, these words have a familiar ring to them, but Khufu has explained them to you, and for the better and the worse at the same time as well. You are still highly suggestible, both of you. So Khufu has suggested this to you You don't see a problem with it. In it goes.
Ben.
Yeah.
Nefer. Kind of sound the words out as I start to move out of the chamber, like back
Mm-hmm.
towards the light. A name seems an important thing, something intrinsic to us all. But I cannot think of any reason not to go with such a moniker. Thank you for your gift, Nefer.
It is fine. As I thought on it, the words seem to bubble to the top of the dark, unlit lake that is my mind.
As you walk back from the shadowed tomb with the desecrated bodies.
We're not getting out of here so easy, are we?
No, you walk into the lighted corridor, and you hear the presence. It's standing in the shadows. The presence says, "How crude it is to witness you grasp at the secret of naming, having no power to do it, but still so reflexively, immediately setting about to do that once you have gained a little bit of yourself. Even in this early age when you do not know what you are, who you are, where you will head in the following centuries and millennia. Immediately you start naming things."
I think in the present, Kufa will say, well, as Sobek said back then, names, as we now know, do have power.
They do. It is something for you to contemplate, perhaps.
And I sort of respond, to be nameless is to be adrift in a world of chaos. And a name is important. It gives you definition, but it also is a weapon against you. This is true. And by naming me, I suppose, if we back then had a weapon against me, whether he knew it or not.
It is the greatest of weapons. You have no idea. And we continue in the first turn. You head out of the tomb, I presume?
Unless I'm barred by evil spirits.
No. The spirits have stayed away now. So you come up out into what now is, the sun is almost gone. There's only a baleful red glare in the west. The desert to the east, rapidly being swallowed by the night. You still sense Sekhem that way, in the field of pillars and the sand, away from the city, that is. What do you do?
Now we're sort of out, even though the light's fading quickly. I think before it fades too much, we should have a look at the inscriptions on both the items we've recovered, see if we can make out any more of them, like whether we can work out what this scene is, whether...
Before we do that, I'm just going to... Well, you can do that, but I'm just going to, again, with that sense of awareness, see if I can feel those presences again. Are they far, near?
They're not terribly far. And you think you can even hear something, like some things moving in the distance, maybe. But you're not sure if that's the nightly noise of you, because you know that animals make noise because you spent time in the river farming. So you're not sure if that's just night noise or what. But
I can still sense those things, if they're like us or something different. I feel protective over this thing that I've gained. I don't wish to part with it, but at the same time I'm curious of who these creatures are. I want to question them.
I nod as I'm sort of examining the scene on the hunter's axe.
Right. So I will read the description here. So formed from a wooden haft and the halved jawbone of an enormous lion. This primitive-looking hatchet leaves much to desire aesthetically, so it's not really like a display piece as such, but then your guild doesn't give a rat's ass about that sort of thing. The bone curve of the jaw still holds the majority of the teeth that were attached to it while the lion was still alive. The teeth themselves are also stained, you realize, in large part with some kind of resin that was applied to hold them in place once the natural tissues decomposed. And like I said, there's these sharpened pieces of black glassy stone where the teeth have fallen out. And there's the sinew holding it there. The handle of the weapon is carved with a scene of an adult lion hunting what appear to be ghosts and skeletons. I'll give you a bit of time to make a note of that.
That's a lot of info.
A bizarre image rendered in a style of iconography difficult to identify. So it's not straight up like, oh yes, my grandmother in Irem had like a dozen of these, the same series. In fact, it's not like that. So, but you can tell what it is quite easily. Where the images stop, the handle is wrapped in strips of lion skin, and the butt is capped with an extraordinarily large lion incisor. Yeah, so it is in fact a hatchet if you want to swing with it. You don't know about the details. I will eventually make a note in Roll20 for that for you. I don't have it currently, but you know in general terms that it will help you act as a hunter and also as a killer, the logical conclusion of a hunt, if you have used it on someone or something. So the activation almost is you using it on someone, and then it starts doing its thing.
Okay, so as I'm examining this this hatchet, this hunter's axe, and Sobek's saying that he thinks we should investigate these creatures further, I'm just going to sort of look up from the axe towards him, and in quite a deadpan voice I say, well, it is clear that this axe was made for hunting. Perhaps we should hunt down the creatures that we both sense.
Do you intend to strike them down?
That will depend entirely on what we find.
I'm going to do like a little insight on this guy. I just want to see if this has like affected his mood.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, does it made him more aggressive?
John, that's entirely your call. I'm going to presume that I know the answer, but that's up to you. Is there a roll necessary to see whether or not?
No, I mean, I think you get the sense that it's not made me more aggressive, but because I'm sort of like, I'm all about the duty. I'm like, this is something that called to me. It's designed for hunting, so it should be used for hunting because that is what it is designed for. So it's not a case of I've got the axe and I'm like, I must go and kill things. Cool. It's more a case of I'm like, this is designed for hunting. I should use it for hunting. Because I don't
power in this thing, so I'm like,
I don't have any other sort of frame of reference, like a wider sort of frame of reference to go on. So I'm just like, whatever we find, we can sense it has a purpose. That's why it's drawn us to it. We have some connection with it. We should use it for the purpose it is intended for.
Okay. And let us meet these. As we move towards them, and I'm going to look at mine and try and figure it out.
It starts to almost feel like the as you stare at it, the symbols start to swim on the stone a little bit. You're not sure if that's an optical illusion. You don't know what that is anyway, but maybe the symbols are moving, maybe they're not. And you can sense terrible malice that you could call upon in the stone. And you can also sense the unmistakable whiff of fate. Some kind of momentousness and malice are mixed inside the stone. And you know that you can eventually, once you've sat down with it, you've decrypted the thing, which you're quite confident you could do, given enough time, you could figure out the puzzle of the stone, and you could call upon both incredible malice and like quite the fortuitous sort of auspicious nature of it.
Should bend things to my
it's a weird mix that it gives you, because there's the, on one hand there's the, just, I hesitate to say evil because it's not really that, but just awfulness, and then the counterpart to it, the sort of almost fated, auspicious feeling that it gives you.
I'll give Ben a bit of time to sort of like look at this stone orb.
You'll see me getting more concerned over time, like
I think
almost like I want to drop it, but I can't.
I think after a few moments, I sort of like gently like put a hand on his arm and I'll say, "Shall we go after those creatures?"
Yes.
Once we are sure that we are safe, we can spend more time examining these items.
I'm gonna try and form a sash as well as we move, like to hold this thing, because I don't really want to touch it anymore for a bit.
Yeah, you can do the Gandalf thing, you know, just wrap it in a robe. Full took.
Yeah. And I'm kind of looking for a source of water as well, if I can.
Water? Not
Unlikely.
here.
Yeah.
Not here. But there's the river and also Necbet, so. But none in the Necropolis. That is a no.
To make a forest.
There's the beer. If you want liquid, there's beer in the tomb, you realize.
Nah, I'm not going back there. Oh, should I use my specialization? Never mind. Next time.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, as I put it, where as we're moving, I stay silent for a while, but that's not really helpful in a role-playing game.
As a standard action, I'm quiet.
I don't do anything. I just walk in quietness. But I turn as we're, cinematically by the, fading of the sun and all that. I have stared at this for some time, Nefer, gesturing at the thing. I think, I don't know how, but I feel it's malice, malcontent. It's an awful thing, and yet I was drawn to it. What does that say about me?
It would
what
depend.
Kind of thing I? Do you not feel that there's something wrong with what you have? This.
I do not sense any malice that's wrong from my axe. But likewise, I was drawn to it. But we do not know yet why we were drawn to it. Consider it is possible that you were drawn to this item to protect others from it, or to dispose of it. We do not yet know.
It's a nice thought.
Until we have discovered more about both the items and ourselves, anything we decide would be simply guesswork.
The braid we got yet days before, that cost someone their life.
Indeed, but I sense that the energies coming from it, it cost her life, it cost Salifa her life, because she had been using it to sustain herself, and only it to sustain herself. And once she passed it to me, when that effect was removed, the weight of the deprivation that she had levelled upon her own body and had simply delayed using the band returned in full force and paved the way for her passage to the west. I do not believe that it was any malice on the behalf of the item that spelled her doom. It was simply her time to pass.
I appreciate your your good nature. You're struggling to find the right words. Your viewpoint is refreshing. This thing that I now bear, I do not like it, but I cannot let it go. That's strange.
It may be strange, but as I've said, we do not have the enough information to judge whether this is a normal part of what we are. And until we find that out, we can only guess at why we are drawn to these items.
He's processing a lot of things in his mind at the same time. I know that's not helpful when I'm in the middle of a conversation.
That's fine.
But he's you can see he's trying to work something out. Do you think we're like those things we heard in the tomb?
The unquiet shades.
Yeah.
Perhaps I certainly am something alike to them, since I was able to perceive them, but I do not believe we are the same any more than we are the same as the creature that we fought on the barge. We may be similar, but unlike the shades, we walk in bodies, we can interact with the world around us, whereas they are simple shadows, the howling of the wind.
I feel you've not spent much time here with the other people, the people that look like us but are not quite like us. For you would have not noticed yet, but they require rest. They require water from the river and food from harvest. We have walked all day and I feel no different.
It is clear that as we are unlike the shades and the creature we fought on the barge, we are also similar and yet different to the people that you met in the town on the riverbank.
It's curious now.
How deeply the similarities or differences run, I cannot yet say.
Maybe these things we find will have answers.
Indeed. Let us attempt to track them down. And I think we're going to head off after the waft of Sechem coming from these two. No, that horrendous creatures.
So you head into the darkened pillar field, which you realize as you walk kind of is on top, at least in part, of the tomb that you were in previously. The pillars much eroded by the elements. You can see footprints going here and there, and you hear the signs, the sounds rather, of struggle up ahead. Eventually, there's shouts, grunts, a yell.
I think I'll probably quicken my pace as I hear that, probably break it into like a jog or something similar.
Yeah. So you run, or jog rather. Benben, are you keeping with?
I'm coming with, yeah.
In the shadow of a pillar, you have it's a man of such skin that you've been told he would fit right in Ta Seti, which is the land to the south called the Land of the Bow, because people from there are famed as archers in these parts of the world. But he looks like he could be from there. He has a bald head, youthful features. However, like half of his face is a mangled mess. He is currently slumped up against this pillar at the base, sort of just like sitting in a heap. And in one hand, he has a Kopesh sword, and that is sort of bent to the side from like 2/3 of the way up. It's clearly been somehow devastated a little bit. He's both of his legs similarly mangled, like his face. He's missing one arm from the shoulder, and basically he just doesn't have one arm. And his torso has a giant, basically claw marks. His clothing is shredded as a result, much as his flesh is. He still seems to be somehow alive. That is explained in some part, no doubt, due to the fact that you sense Sekhem in him. Quite a bit of it, indeed. This man feels to you as you do onto each other. Perhaps he too is like you, and that is what is keeping him together. However, his body does bleed, which is not true for what Ben experienced, but he feels the same to you. But he looks like an absolute mess. He's just slumped there at the base of the one of these pillars. There's some blood splattering all around him on the sands as well, and he's just sort of and he's like trying to rise up this as you come into view. He's rising up this like bent Kopesh, and he's like, stay away.
Since we sensed two creatures with Sekhem,
Yes.
Can we see like whatever he's fighting, or
He's somewhere beyond him, some distance away. It's not in the immediate presence here. It's lurking somewhere further away.
yeah, I'm gonna head over in his direction. I'm holding the axe in one hand, but I'm gonna sort of hold it out so it's obvious I'm not like rushing in to attack him or anything.
Yeah. He blinks his one good eye that he has. The other one's kind of swollen and kind of broken up. He's trying to push himself up, and as he does, his legs, because he doesn't have an arm, one of his legs like buckles underneath him, so he just like slumps back at a very awkward angle into the sand, and just like scrambling, trying to crab walk away from you, still holding onto the Kopesh for dear life.
I'm gonna say to him, "We're not here to harm you." Let us help.
What happened to you?
It's one of the. It's the. It's. Are you like me?
I
Perhaps.
think so.
His voice is considerably clearer now that he's not thinking, "Oh, I need to throw down with these people."
I'm gonna say, Ben, give me a hand with him. We need to get him away from this place.
No, you need to go. It's still there. It's watching. It's drawing you in. I figured it out now. It only left me here to draw you in. You need to go.
You are right. We do need to go, but we cannot leave you here.
And he's speaking in perfect Aramite, which is a clue to you, perhaps.
If we leave without you, we'd still know where we go. So we might as well bring you with us. Makes sense.
No, we where are you going? We can't bring this to Nekeb. It's
Then
What is it?
we will not head to Neko.
it's
What are we?
he presses the Kopesh hand. He presses it to his ruined chest, drawing some of the blood, and he presses this unless you protest, Nefer. He presses his bloody hand on your chest afterwards, and he says, "We are kin. This thing is kin also, maybe, but it is a monster, and it has already eaten my two companions, and It was playing with me here
Right.
until you came.
From what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, you're fairly buff.
What?
Is that correct?
I am in what I believe to be a decent physical.
So what I'm going to suggest is we effectively we pick this guy up and we effectively like strap him to your back, like backpack style. So like you've got your arms and legs free because you'll have more sort of upper body strength to carry him. Then we can basically start moving away. While we're going, I can be sort of covering your back, but because you'll have him backpack styly, you'll still have your hands and your legs free. We'll be a little bit slower, but we're like hopefully with me covering your back and you sort of moving at a reasonable speed because this guy's like going to be a lot lighter than if all of his body was present. Like hopefully we should be able to make like good time away from here. But if we do get attacked, you won't be like, oh, I've got my arms full of, oh, I've got to like put this, because he'll be on your back. You'll just be able to like turn around and lay the smack down.
Where do we go?
I would suggest, given that he said we cannot take this back to Necab, I would suggest we return to the stone circle where we met Sennifer, since we know the terrain in that area.
Okay.
That's the vulture, former vulture priest in the desert on the other side, isn't it, Sennifer?
Yes, she is dead.
Ah.
You knew her?
He seems saddened at that.
And literally, like as if Ben's like agreed to my plan, as he's talking, I'm going to be like strapping him to Ben's back like as quickly as we can, so we can get moving.
He's not really in a shape to protest too much.
Yeah. So basically, using like rags or tearing a bit off of robes or whatever we need to do, just basically make some very simple straps and basically almost like make him like put his arm around Ben's like neck, sort of strap him on at the waist, so he is like a backpack effectively.
Yeah.
But what I'll do is I'll actually strap him on so like he's facing backwards, because then I know he's only got like his bent ass like Kopesh, but at least if we get jumped unexpectedly and something comes at Ben from behind, he can like maybe delay him a bit with his Kopesh, so he won't be entirely unprotected from the back. But as we start moving away, I'm going to be sort of moving alongside, but I'm going to be sort of keeping an eye on Ben's like rear, basically, making sure like nothing comes up behind us, because he knows the way to the stone circle as well, so we both know the route we'll be taking.
We'll make time. I'll be kind of concentrating on moving, but also seeing if I can sense this presence moving towards us. Like I could sense it before.
Are you using your god sight?
And I'm got on my death sight on as well.
Yeah.
I've got to be careful with god sight, though, haven't I? Because it uses willpower to do that. I think I won't use it at the moment. No.
Right. So what then happens is you can see what a regular mortal eyes would see in the dark, in the desert. So, starlight. But the idea is once you've got this individual on board, just book it to basically to the edge of the Deshret on the other side of the river, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens. You start heading away from the necropolis, and there's a presence that you sense, just like the Nefer.
I was going to say what I'll be doing as well is, because obviously I'm accustomed to like moving in the shadows and being very stealthy. If I get the sense that this thing's sort of like coming closer, like it's getting ready to pounce, what I'll try and do is as Ben's moving with this guy on his back, I'll try and sort of peel off into the shadows and slow down a bit, hoping that like it'll go past me and then like I can jump it. And he'll be able to like double back and help me, rather than it sort of attack us unaware, like turn the tables on it basically.
So you're doing this, and Ben is doing his part. He's going away, and you're sort of doing the rear guard action, trying to ambush the ambusher.
Yep.
And you realize before anything needs to happen that because you can feel the second from this other creature. You can feel that it has actually sensed what you're trying to do, and it is sort of circling around behind you, not Ben anymore. But you can tell that this is happening once the presence sort of like starts shifting from the trajectory that you expected.
That's fine, because as far as I'm concerned, while it's circling back on me, it's giving Ben with this really injured guy like chance to get further away.
Yep.
And I'm like, realistically, I've not got someone strapped to my back, so once I need to, I can probably make up better time. And I've got this axe, which is like, I am the hunter's axe, so I'm feeling a little bit more confident than I was previously. So I imagine that both me and this thing are sort of engaged in like a bit of a game of like circle and counter circle, because I can also sense it.
Yeah.
So we're sort of trying to outmaneuver each other, and I'm basically just trying to keep it going as long as I can to give them a chance to get away.
The both of you have very similar sort of magics to call upon as well. So I think there's a bit of where like you leverage your natural like inborn affinity for this kind of thing, and eventually you realize, wait, like this doing the same thing I am? Because it feels like there's more at play here than this thing just being a very good hunter. And eventually, because you can tell that it's probably leveraging something like you are, you can eventually, you end up basically just like staring at each other, because the both of you sort of realize what's going on. And eventually there's a sort of like recognition of like, I know what your game is, you know what my game is. So there's the figure just walks into your view from behind one of these pillars. Underneath the starlight, there's not a lot of detail that you can see in the dark desert in the Necropolis, but it is a figure clad in heavy robes, flowing robes. As far as you can tell in the faint starlight, just entirely black garb. So like flowing black garments on this body, which looks to you like human from the figure. And there's a hood as well. And you can tell there's eyes glowing underneath the hood. But there's also just like that. The eyes are basically the only part of the body that you can see. Everything else is wrapped up in this black cloth. Yeah.
So if I'm right, what you're saying is like two figures of locked eyes across the dunes. One is clad in like flowing white robes, slightly stained with blood, and the other is clad in like dark black robes. Nice.
Yep. And
I'm going to be like, because I'm expecting it to like rush me. So I'm, because I've realised like, oh, it's obviously calling my bluff, like the game is over. So I'm going to be like tensed, ready for it to like rush me, or if I need to rush it. But I'm going to be sort of like warily like circling it, like keeping an eye on it. Again, just trying to drag this out to give Ben a chance to get further away.
There's a whisper on the wind, which Ben doesn't have any idea, because you're just like, we need to go. But Nefer, you hear this. The figure still, like you're doing the circling there on the dunes. The figure says to you in Eremite, I will kill you quick if you beg for mercy.
At which point I'm going to say back, but I'm going to say it in like a loud voice. I don't hold with any of this whispering nonsense. I'm going to say back, I make no such promise to you.
Fall on your knees. This is the only chance.
There is only one entity that I would kneel before, and you are not it.
You've made your choice, and I will relish the chance to make you pay.
I'm just going to wait to see what it does.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It what it does is it walks behind one of these pillars as you do your circling thing, and it does something that you innately could do, but not quite yet. It, by steps unseen, appears near the your vicinity, and basically what happens is you circle around. It's telling you these things in this whisper in the wind voice. It goes behind a pillar, disappears, appears next to you, and there's a great sort of it's claws replacing his fingers, and the claws are made, as far as you can tell, just from darkness, and it claws at you, and which is easily, you don't need to roll anything. You can just like whoop, because you were ready to throw it down, but it was almost, you can tell, because it doesn't really like come upon you like viciously afterwards, but it's almost like it's showing off a little bit, like, look how easy it would be for me to like destroy you.
Yeah,
You get that idea.
As I sort of like throw myself to one side to avoid the claws, I'm going to lash out with the hunter's axe in the direction of like the clawed arm.
Yeah, you can do your roll thing.
I'm blatantly going to get wrecked because I'm not a combat
and as I now remember it, before you roll, we apply a penalty of the creature's defense onto your roll as well.
Okay. I'll spend a willpower.
Yep.
Although, a second.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Now, my leather braid, it says I can spend willpower / morality instead of memory or morality.
Yeah, you can sacrifice actual points of that in place of willpower.
Do we have morality though?
It's your memory would be the thing that you would sacrifice. So if you wanted to, you could sacrifice your one memory for this and become memory 0 individual.
Just out of interest, what does memory 0 mean for an Arisen?
Memory 0.
I've never been in that position before.
Yeah.
I'm like Mr. Memory.
Yeah. Let's revisit that.
I'm only asking because I'm wondering whether like maybe this is the reason in the future I'm like, I've got to keep the memory up.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Here we go. Memory. Memory 0. Here we go. So, without memory, the mummy becomes an undead automaton. You return to your tomb as quickly as possible, restricted by an inability to ride animals and operate vehicles. If a vessel is closer than a tomb, she seizes it by force and then goes back to her tomb. She cannot speak, sense, or use complex tools, though she may use pillar points. Meditation becomes impossible, thus pillar recovery is not really a thing. While resting in your tomb, you enter a state of deep repose, interrupting it only to kill intruders. You remain 0 until you're killed, resurrected, or the descent completes and you're dying.
See, you know what I'm asking? Like, I quite like that thematically. I quite like the idea of like busting the last memory and then like, now I will return to the tomb. But I'm asking mainly because I'm like, if I do this, is this going to like entirely derail like the sort of first turn?
No.
If it is, I'm not going to do it and like derail the whole like flashbacks. I'm enjoying it.
I have some ideas for what could happen if you tank your memory, and just basically what happens is you black out. Like Khufu isn't there for the following portion, but I have some ideas for how we can get back.
Right, yeah, I'm gonna burn that memory then. Let's burn it.
All right, so what happens is...
sorry, can I just check? I presume like if I burn the memory, I'll still be able to like attack the creature and like finish before I'm like...
Yeah. It's the sequence is you get the thing you were trying to do, and then the braid just like just scrapes off whatever has accumulated on your small soul at this point in time, and leaves it pristine.
I think in my sort of rational mind, I'm like, I don't really have much memory at the minute, so it's not like a massive sacrifice as far as I'm concerned. I may be wrong, but I'm like, I don't even know my name. I've met a few people. I've been to a couple of places. That's literally all I've got. So like, I'm not really sacrificing a lot, and like this thing needs to be dealt with. And I've got no tricks I can like pull out of my bag to use on it.
So let's just go with a sort of, because I don't know if you're picking up on it, but this is not really your average run-of-the-mill individual with spear. Let's just average it out because I don't have his entire like stat thing all designed out. Let's have a defense of 6 for this individual at the moment. So
let's see. So, and I presume I can just put that in as a minus modifier.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So
it might be a case of you totaling the willpower expenditure and then
so it goes to my roll. So the willpower gives me +3.
Yeah, so
minus 6 and -3. Yeah. Okay. Let's give it a go. It's probably not going to work out well.
Okay. 0 successes indeed.
Even on a 10, 0 successes.
Okay, let me take a look here. So effectively what happens is we don't see what happens because Khufu doesn't remember. There's no memory of whatever followed that instance. So the camera pans away from Khufu dodging this like show-off swipe, and then Khufu, what do you do with the axe?
I was just going to swing it towards the thing.
Yeah, so you step back from this show off and then like lean in, it's like huh with the axe, and that's where that part cuts out, and we follow Ben instead. So Ben, do you belt down?
I was curious to see if the presence asks him a question or something like that. You know, like in the future. Like I was like expecting him to be like, "You do not recall this moment, do you?"
I think maybe as we follow Ben, there's the presence in the present. It says, "It is only by the will of fate that you have avoided annihilation, which is, of course, as it should be."
And I'll just say, in the present, I say, well, you're correct, but are we not all tools of fate?
I'd be like, well, I do not know what happened to my brother, but I managed to move this stranger at the time away. If that was fate or kindness from Khufu, I do not know, truly. But it is what happened. It is what I remember. It is interesting that when you strip us down to next to nothing, or what is left, and in my brother was kindness.
There is something auspicious of this memory, and we must reach that point, whatever it may be. It was not that you almost were destroyed in the Necropolis. We must investigate further. And with that, we can do a little bit of a time lapse, actually. So we don't exactly know what happened in the Necropolis between Khufu swinging the the lion's jaw, and this creature with the shadow claws, and second.
I have a theory of what happened. I have a theory.
Let's hear it.
So obviously, I'm not the curse master, but my theory is obviously he attempted to fight it and failed. He didn't. His heart wasn't in it. He wasn't. He wasn't in destructo mode.
Mm-hmm.
The creature gets him, obviously, bears him down, goes for the kill, and it's like at that second, like that exact second, that something about Khufu. See, I didn't know it was Khufu then. His visage, his aura, the closeness, a flash of memory in the creature, either recollection or confusion. And it kind of stays its hand. Maybe a promise it made and it doesn't know why. Maybe it's a familial connection all of a sudden. Could it be guild? Or maybe it sensed something obviously that I don't know. But I feel like it was a memory was stirred. And it actually got close enough.
So we jump ahead a little bit. I'm conscious of the time and also the fact that we, well, let's have a quick word about that. Are we interested in doing a whole bunch more of these? I have ideas for what we can do in the first turn here, but of course we started a little bit late tonight, and we've been doing a lot of like juicy interaction talk stuff, which is great. Do we want to do further sessions in the first turn? I was thinking at least one more. We could definitely do more as well, and maybe we'll see next time. But I think we're going to speed it up a little bit here to cover some ground, because there's, like I said, when we started this, we could just run like a first turn game for 50 sessions. There's a lot we could do here.
There's a lot to unpack, yeah.
Yeah, but we are still, the main timeline is 2016. So, okay, so we're going to jump forward into the three of you in Nekheb. I'm going to say several months on. So it's the time of the harvest has been going on here. You're in Nekheb. Nefer is alive. Yeah, Nefer.
Just one thing. Do I now know where my tomb is? Since presumably I've had to head back to it.
Yeah, you. That's part of the reason why there's a several month gap here, is because eventually you were reunited. Yeah, but that was when Nefer was coming back up north from having gone pretty far south. So, Nefer, you came to your senses in the far south, and you made your way back up again. You're not sure, and you don't remember what happened in the south. But eventually you did recall, Ben, and there was some terrible violence happening, and you came up once more.
So if I've had to die and come back again, does that mean I'm now on like high second again, or?
Yeah, one less second.
I'm still on 9.
Sorry, yeah. So let's actually, because we're revising it because for the time jumps, right? So we're gonna have establish a baseline, and you're gonna get -1 on that because you perished. So what are we gonna? We're gonna say.
So if I sorry, apologies if I'm getting this wrong. If I've perished and I've come back, wouldn't that be higher? Because if I've come back, doesn't your second like replenish back to like the high level when you like return? Like when we originally came out,
it goes down.
All right,
so
okay, cool.
When you die, it knocks off 1.
All right, okay, cool.
So, Ben, you're at 6 at this point in time, and Nefer, you're at 5. So, all together, once more, in the land of reeds, Tashima, you are reunited in Nekeb. You recall each other. Ben, you've spent some time with your companion here in Nekeb. You're kind of a regular around, like you're not really settled in here, but you've been using the tomb, which has now 2 vacancies because Cosmot's previous entombed friends were destroyed.
Casmut?
So,
You mentioned Casmut?
yes.
This is Casmut.
Yes.
Oh.
He has introduced himself.
Oh, he's actually given his name.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, did I miss something? Okay, that's...
No. You've just learned his name in the meantime.
Come on, tell me you weren't expecting that to be Casmut.
No, I was expecting the guy killing you to be Casmut. Like some kind of
You're dead set on redacting history to make the world's worst.
I hate to break to you, man, but Casmut is not the villain of this piece.
So Casmut has told you that he awoke here a whole bunch before you turned up with his compatriots whose names were Senubke and Chimera, and they were both destroyed by this creature that was playing with Cosmot in the field.
Sorry, Senubke and...
I'll put those in chat.
Did he get a name from this thing that was stalking them?
No. Shit. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows the kind of thing it is, in the sense that it is also infused with this life essence that you are, except it's a horrifying monster that eats people like you and Cosmot and Senubke and Chimera. So Senubke and Chimera are done. Their bodies have been mostly eaten by whatever this thing was that he was fighting, and there's nothing left of them.
Truly, it must have met its match in Nefer. He returned.
Well, clearly, and this is something we're sort of like summarizing here, so we're not going to do the play-by-play, but Cosmot introduces himself as a kind of a warrior of a particular kind of conquest, and he has indicated that Nefer here is clearly a great warrior as well, because you've apparently fended off whatever this thing is, and you made it back.
I believe you do me too much credit. I cannot say with any certainty what happened with the creature, since I was forced to... can I just check, do I still have the axe and the braid, or...
Oh, yes.
I cannot say what happened. This and I gesture to the braid. Mm-hmm. This allows me to call on a few resources I possess to bolster myself, and not being a natural warrior, I was forced to do so. After that, I remember nothing before returning to myself in the far south. Once I recalled the two of you, I headed north, and here I am. I cannot say what else occurred.
So, there's a couple of scenes here that I want to get to. So with Cosmot, he's showing you around. He's been active in Nekeb and the Necropolis, where his tomb is, for a good amount of time. So he clearly has, from how he acts and talks and whatnot, he clearly has a little bit more memory than you do. And of course, he remembers his actual name as well. So he's been showing you around, helping you sort of settle here. and he's offered you the tomb if you want to stay there. That's something you could do. There's space there for you, and he's indicated that he's a warrior and a builder of fortresses in particular. And
I ask him, how does he know this?
He remembers it. Like when he grasps a weapon, he remembers how to use it. And when he grasps a tool to build fortresses, or a block of stone or a mud brick, he knows what to do with it. That's how he explains it to you. So he is very sort of confident in his sort of nature. He knows his name. He knows what he is, and he's mentioned that there's others like you, and he's met some of them aside from Senubke and Kemere, who died now apparently. But they've gone down the river. If they've turned up in Nekheb, maybe he's met them, but they've all sort of moved on eventually. And he's not really aware of any others in the vicinity. And you turning up was a surprise to him, really. So he's given you a short, like a sort of primer into like Kemet, the Black Land, as now you exist here. So basically what he's doing is he's helping you get acclimated to the reality that you exist in. Which means that you can increase your memory by 1 each. You can we don't need to worry about these in relation to the actual future timeline sheets. You can just put the dot on your first turn sheet there. And you can also add 2 pillar points in whatever combination you desire onto your first turn pillars. These are all malleable things which you don't really need to keep track of for the future. It's just for our purposes here in the first turn.
Okay.
So he's talking to you about how things work, what people do, who they are, what he's learned living here, observing. Sometimes he's sort of worked with the people of Nekheb. He's a fairly good builder, and they sometimes need building, like with the tombs. And he's also associated somewhat with the soldiers around. Now, in particular, there's some revelations that come to you as far as the dots go and the memory. He takes you to the Deshret in the east, like further beyond the Necropolis. You walk into the sand dunes, and he brings you to what is, to our eyes, a shattered obelisk of prodigious size. But it is indeed shattered, and there's not the entire structure is there. But you can see Eremite writing on it. You can see it's some kind of a list, maybe, you think, of peoples or tribes or some kind of group of peoples, a list of them, and then it states bound hereby in servitude to the city of pillars, which is Irem, as you know. And Cosmut has taken you to this shattered obelisk, and he has said that this is what he was drawn to at the start when he was having trouble. And he eventually found it, and it has helped him remember things, such as he is indeed an architect by nature, and a warrior at that. And he remembers building this obelisk. But clearly that has happened a long time ago, because it has been broken and it is eroded. It helps you. The flood of memories, just looking at the glyphs of actual Eremite writing, it helps you remember things about yourself. the memory gain can be accompanied by you remembering your name, for example, if you so desire. That is up to you. You can decide if that happens here or not. It happened for Cosmo, but that might be because he thinks he built this. So, but that is up to you. But this is the major bridge for you to sort of recover parts of yourself because it is a concrete thing of Irem.
But best
So I ask him. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. After you, man.
Can I touch this thing? Can I?
Yeah. It's a giant rising from the sand.
See, it was destroyed. It was like half.
Yeah, it's been somehow broken from like the halfway, and you don't see the upper half anywhere. It's kind of like a decapitated obelisk rising from the sand. It's massive.
So I kind of just draw my hand across it, like I walk around it as I'm like feeling it. And I'm talking to Cosmo, although that's not his full name. And I ask him, so this you think comes from our home?
I believe that this has been built by my hand. I have carved these people's names. He traces the confident Iramite hieroglyphs on it. And I have thus bound them to the service of Irem. Would it not stand to reason that I also served Irem? And he indicates the one glyph in particular, which is again, this is one of those things that hits you like a truck because you remember this so vividly. It's a particular scorpion image, which is a part of the Iramite writing. And the scorpion is this sort of, it is the sign of the Shanyatu, the holy priests of the underworld that ruled Irem. So it has that part where it says like, these people are thus bound into the service of Irem, the city of pillars. Or it's actually not even truly Irem, it's the city of pillars. And that is the part where the scorpion sigil is. And that you recall that for sure. You know that has heavy meaning. It has authority almost radiating out of the mere sign of it.
I sense meaning from this, Cosmo. This thing is worn. It has seen many seasons.
What could undo stone like this? Time?
It's been sundered as well. Look at the backs. It's not whole.
Many things have.
Is that why we are not whole?
Think of the Necropolis.
Are we connected to this? Like, are there others like this out there?
Why would there not be? There are others like us as well. And they have gone forth from here, but surely they have gone somewhere where more of these can be found. This is the only one that I have found, but it bears my name on it. And he indicates one part to you as well, which has his name on it.
Is it just a name, or is it like a phrase or an inscription?
Like... it is. This has been devoted in faith by Cosmos of the Tef Abi, which you know to be the architects.
Yeah, architects.
Well, you don't know in the first turn, but in modern days, you know that's the name of the Architects Guild.
Wait a second. I have my encyclopedic knowledge.
Yes, you do. I guess that would be it sounds like it has been erected by Cosmo the architect.
Well, I was thinking, do I know what the significance of these obelisks are? Are they contracts?
It seems to you, because this is not really your wheelhouse at all, as far as the actual arts of the guild go. This would seem to you be like a monument to achievements.
Like a declaration.
A declaration of like, these are our servants. Period. And just to put it out there in the world, it's like, these people serve us. if it had any mystical potency, you don't have the tools to deal with that.
Can I now? I don't know my real name right this.
No, unless you decide.
No, I don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. At that point in time, I don't want to know my name. But I'm curious to see, like, as I'm tracing my hand around it, and if my name is on there in 2016, the presence is like kind of making note of that. Like I walk right past it, but it's there, kind of thing.
So
if that makes sense.
It doesn't have individuals' names. Right. The reason why it has Cosmo's name is because he did it. It's the signature.
Cool.
But if you want to, you could have the inscription contain your people. So the tribe you're from, for example, or the place that you're from. It could be there.
Sure, yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah. So you pass by, like your hand just like brushes this thing, which in modern day you remember, oh, that's me. that's my people's there on the list of servants.
But back then I had no idea.
Yeah, and also in modern day you realize Cosmo is not an architect. He is in fact an engraver of amulets, and has been, as far as you remember, all the way back to Sarda. Don't know what happened there.
Why would he claim different?
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was an architect. You know yourself that that's possible. In modern day, you know that you can change guilds. You have done that as well yourself.
You can change post being an arisen?
Yes, you can indeed.
Oh, I thought that was locked in place. I thought that was.
It is. No, it is not.
Interesting.
But yeah, when he first awoke, apparently Cosmo was an architect. So
that might explain why he lost his way. You forgot who he was.
These people who change their guilds, I mean, what's that all about?
Hey, I did it before it was cool.
Eremites. Goddamn hipsters from pre-hipstery.
What can I say? Some of us are just committed to the guild we join.
Some of us are dedicated and loyal.
Servants of the night.
We tend to our duty above all.
We say servants of the night. Best believe as soon as we got 2 pillars, I was like, that'll be 2 shoots so I can access my steps unseen. Thank you very much.
I wonder where you picked that up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking, oh, maybe I saw that thing, and I was like, I think it's got something there with that shadow teleporting.
Yeah, it's got some ideas.
Especially since you described it being as like very similar to me, and it was like, I like to think that maybe some like part of my subconscious, as my memory returned, sort of like recalled that, and that sort of
no, there's going to be that we're going to refer to that moment later on. Okay, so Cosmo has taken you here because he got a lot out of just looking at this thing and thinking, and you did as well. So currently you don't exactly know what City of the Pillars is or what Irem is, but clearly it was a place. And if Cosmo is from there, he's like you're probably from there as well. But that's it.
I'm thinking, to be honest, if he said that, like, oh, I've met some other Arisen and they all went down the river, like, looking for other obelisks, we should perhaps go down the river and look for other obelisks if they have a similar effect to this one.
He agrees, especially because there's very little here for him now that his compatriots were eaten.
Yeah.
And you took their relics. He has his own. So he has indicated that he has it's a necklace of a kind. It's a sort of circular piece of stone, which has some sort of iconography on it. It's not language; it's pictures. But he has indicated that this is mine. These things that you have taken belong to his compatriots, which were destroyed. And he doesn't like hold it against you. He clearly thinks it's okay for you to have them because he doesn't really, they were not his, and he would rather have them in someone's hands than just leave them behind. Okay, so he in his efforts to sort of immerse you into Kemet, he has taken you to what they call in Eremite a montage, and there's a bunch of scenes from Nekeb as Cosmot is sort of like showing you around the town. So Nekeb, 6,000 people, give or take, a lot of people going about. There's a whole bunch of nobles that you can pick out easily from the sort of jewelry and finer clothing that they have. Most of them, though, peasants. And as this is the time of harvest, you can regularly see peasants bring their sort of portion to the city proper, give it to the nobles. And Cosmot has pointed out how things work. So the peasants bring it to the nobles probably give it over to, oh, there we go. The nobles are giving it over to representatives of the Great House. And the Great House is the king's sort of family and the structure where he exists in, and the servants and thereabouts. The sort of institution of kingship is the Great House. And the Great House, Cosmo takes you to this event as well. The Great House sends these envoys and sort of tax assessors down up the river to different places. Cosmo tells you that different areas of Kemet are called gnomes, Nome. That is a newer word that is originally from Greece, I believe, but we're using that because I don't have the proper, I don't know what they would call it in Kemetic, but we're calling them gnomes. And you also understand in modern day that that's actually the terminology Arisen have used ever since. So you call places that Arisen exist in gnomes if they are being effectively sort of governed by any kind of Arisen body, which Rio, for example, is a gnome. It is effectively governed by, some would perhaps say, the Red Sparrow. Other places have different modes of governance, and they are gnomes as well. So the gnomes are taxed by the Great House, and you can see these farmers give their wheat. And there is an envoy that has come from the Great House, which Cosmot is keen on you to witness. And the envoy is called Ufa. I'll put that in the shot there. So Ufa is an older gentleman, dressed finely as befits a representative of the Great House. Ufa has come to Nekeb to seek an audience with the oracle of the Vulture Temple, the temple of Nekbet, the Vulture goddess, which you were informed of in a previous episode. So Nekbet is the sort of guardian, sort of the patron goddess of Upper Kemet, the Vulture Queen, and the temple sort of dominates the city of Nekeb, and the oracle is the most potent force inside the temple itself. And this envoy, you're present there at the court in the temple when the envoy presents himself and the rest of the representatives of the Great House to have an audience with the oracle. And Cosmo is there with you as well, and he's sort of indicating you that this is important for you to understand. This is what things are like around here, and you're in the audience as you witness Ufa bow before this, like, seated on a dais, cloaked in vulture feathers, woman who is the vulture oracle. Indeed, Ufa says, like, bowing down, like, "Oh, Holy Mother, I, Ufa, the envoy of the Great House, am before you, and I bear the seal of the King Unas." He holds up this, like, gilded tablet, which it has written on it, Great King Unas. I'll put that in chat as well for you. um, yeah, she says, I bear the seal of King Unas. The king asks of you a further prophecy. He wishes to know when the petty squabbling of nomarchs, which are the governors of these areas, when the petty squabbling of nomarchs will be done and peace restored to Kemet. And he bows down again. There's some ritual exchange of words, and the Vulture Oracle retreats to a sanctum to prophecy, ostensibly. Eventually, she rejoins the audience and is seated back on, Vulture cloak intact, and a spokesperson on her behalf says, the Vulture Queen has given us the signs. Takes sort of like ritualistic pose of like, this is how I need to be when I'm pronouncing prophecy, and says, this sort of announcer figure says, the king has set upon a path that will lead to peace on the river. The gods are watching. And there's an sort of like a release of breath in the audience, like a visible sort of relaxation going on. It's like, oh, like that's a good omen. Ooh, we couldn't hope for a better one. And there's great platitudes being given by Ufa, the envoy of the Great House, and great thanks. There's a chest of gold that is brought in and presented with great pomp and circumstance. King Unas wishes to repay this favor for you and of favor from you, and wishes me to extend his gratitude towards the temple and his ever growing fondness and devotion to the Vulture Queen. The king remains ever your friend, as does his second queen, your former priestess. She still holds to her ways. I am given to speak. I have spoken thusly under the seal of King Unas. We depart with your blessing. And they do so. So you witness this like ceremony, and you gain some more understanding of the society. Whatever you take from that is entirely up to you. But from there, the ruler of Kemet is obviously King Unas. He is the king of the Great House. The Great House is him, ostensibly, and his dynasty. He apparently consults the oracle all the way here in Upper Kemet, even though you know, because Cosmos will have told you, if you look on the map, if you go to Lower Kemet, I will ping there. Inbu Hedge is where the Great House has its most magnificent palaces. And that is also where the king resides for most of the time, even though there are other palaces of the king, of course, in different cities. But Inbu Hedge is where the king holds his court. So quite the distance away from Nekeb in this day and age. Right, so that is a short primer to what's going on in Nekeb. You wanted to head down the river, I believe. Cosmut will be able to give you some suggestions, because he truly, what he wants to do is maybe find others like yourselves and share, as he has shared with you, what you have come to understand of this life that you find yourselves in. He has heard that Waset here on Upper Kemet, a great city fertile fields as far as the eye can see, and the man that rules it, Rames, is very powerful indeed. And some say that he is actually not beholden to the great house anymore, as a nomarch should. So he has heard that Rames of Waset has grown powerful enough that he doesn't need to listen to the great house anymore. So big, large city controlled by a very powerful militarily and otherwise noble. He has heard that Nubet is rich in gold, but also cursed in very bad ways of misfortune, perhaps. He suggests that that's a place to avoid, from what he has heard. And that's about his sort of extent of his knowledge from what he's been able to glean from the Arisen that he's met here. He mentions that there's, of course, others, smaller villages and smaller cities like these ones on the map, Jerti and Gebtu and Tantere. These are all places that he knows like scant details from as well, but these are the important bits. But he doesn't know a lot as far as the affairs of the state go. He knows that overall in Kemet, as you already have witnessed yourselves as well, Re is the ultimate highest god now. So the sun worship is the state, not really the state religion because it's not exclusive, but the state hinges on the worship of Re, the sun god. There is absolutely no mention of any underworld religion that you've come across, and Cosmo probably either, because he hasn't said anything about that. Now, of course, Khufu, you know that there's like some customs as far as like, oh, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna go to the west, but they don't really like put any. You haven't encountered like, oh, we need to worship like Osiris or anything. That doesn't seem important to these people. They are interested in the sun, and apparently they're like local gods, like the Vulture Queen here. So with this info bomb, sorry, but I just want to get some of this context in for us because it's important moving forward. Okay, where do you want to head? The choice is yours. You could take a boat, go anywhere up or down the river. Cosmo's understanding, of course, is that he's met some people who have gone down the river. So towards Lower Kemet.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We should sort of follow that. We should make our way towards Lower Kemet. Maybe stop off in a couple of these like places on the way, just to sort of like acclimatise ourselves a little bit more.
I don't suppose we get another vibe for any other object.
Not
at the moment, no.
See, I think we should go travel down the river. And then just sort of like stop at the first sort of like major place we see, which I'm guessing will probably be Waset.
Yes, that is a very major place.
Yeah. So if we travel down the river planning to go to Waset, and if we sense like a flow of Sekhem or the sort of trail leading us towards an artifact, we can then like diverge towards that. But I think we should given that we're looking for other people like us, obviously it tracks to me that like, the more people there are, the more chance there is of us finding some.
So, when we found you, you were being carried like cargo.
Yeah.
For some reason, to somewhere, I'm guessing.
Yeah. That boat, as you think on it, that was heading down the river. Indeed. It was heading to Lower Kemet.
Well, yeah. Answers could be along the river. The river could be the backbone, the spine that we need to traverse.
Indeed, so I think we're going to charter a boat, whatever the equivalent is, and head towards Wasset unless we sense any Sekhem or anything like that.
So you do that, and
I'm guessing we won't see that Cosmo again.
No, Cosmos is coming with you.
Oh, he's coming with us.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
I thought
he's...
he wanted to stay and like be a center.
No, because he wants to find more Arisen.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood. He wanted to stay where he was and like find people like in his tomb. Okay.
Yeah, because his former companions got 8, and he doesn't really know any other Arisen. So,
and I'm sure the three of us are going to be friends forever.
I will ask him, like, if he's been around for a while, was that the first time he'd met someone that had tried to eat him? Like, or if there's something we should be concerned about?
He vaguely has known about this kind of thing from before, talking to some other people, but no details until the thing broke into their tomb, tried to eat the relics, ate his friends instead, and chased him into the pillar fields and toyed with him like a cat with food. But he was aware of something like this, like dark whispers have like of sort of hunters in the night that come for people like him, like other Arisen have told him this.
Do you reckon, Nefer, that's why spirits lingered in that place? As you called them, shadows. So
you're talking about these matters as your reed boat,
which
heads down the river, and you go down the river. We'll quickly touch on. We're gonna wrap this up soon, and I have a thing in mind for how we will end this. But we'll quickly touch on your route here. So you head down from Nekep. The first sort of slightly bigger place you pass by is Jerti, which it's a small settlement, but you can see a fairly large sort of temple construction there. So it seems almost like a village that has sort of grown around a temple rather than a village having a temple on its own. But that's not a very large place at all. You pass on by, you don't feel any special tugging towards that place. Wasset, however, is indeed the second largest city in all of Kemet. It is also, from the looks of it, as you are in the river, you see the docks, you see some distance into the city itself. It seems like just opulently wealthy. There's a lot of produce going in, coming out. There's people with all kinds of merchandise, bringing it in, taking it out, making deals. There's buzzing commerce. And you don't see any soldiers of the king here. None at all. However, you see some soldiers which bear what you suspect is the local sort of insignia and livery, which they must owe their allegiance to Rames instead. But the royal soldiers, not around here. The docks are being watched by the locals. Now, you don't sense any particular Sekhem, and given that's true, I guess you proceed down. You note that there's a lot of people here, though. So the area, and especially the surrounding area, quite large. So there's probably a lot here that you can't really take in just from, a brief visit. But on a sort of glance, passing by, you don't feel any particular pull there. Heading down the river, Gebtu. It's a mining settlement and a busy trading port as well. Minerals, metal, that kind of thing. but as a settlement itself, it's not that large, but it is quite important indeed because metals are very useful and minerals as well. Okay, you pass on by Nubet because Cosmut has heard that it is not a place that you should go to. Dark warnings. Tantere is a small, insignificant settlement you pass on by. And you pull in at Abju, and you sense a lot of Sekhem embodied in living people here, living such as yourselves. You sense other arisen in numbers, and they sense you as well. As you sort of put your reed boat in, disembark.
Look at us.
You stretch your legs a little bit, start heading in. You note that this place feels vastly different than any of these other settlements or big cities that you've been to. There's something in the air and something in how the people here act. And you feel at least a dozen other arisen around. You seek them out, I presume, which is where we can end up when you see.
I think so. Yeah, that.
See them holding court in a temple, which you can see. There's actually there's a temple which has some funerary aspects to the construction. They have removed a particular piece of the wall which has an inscription on it in Kemetic Egyptian, which you can, by this time, you've had enough time to learn to read it. So you can read it. And especially Khufu, you note that this thing that they've taken off the temple wall has a depiction of a jackal, and it has written on it Kenti Amentu, which translates to the foremost of the Westerners. And it was therefore a temple of Kenti Amentu, this is the first sort of death associated temple that you come across. The placard, very old, almost just crumbling as they take it off. And within the temple, you come upon a number of arisen, which they turn to you because they can sense you coming in. And there's a voice, the tone of which we recall from modern day, that says, "Welcome, brothers, to this temple which we are in the process of rededicating to the true faith. Stay and be welcome in these halls," says a man of dark complexion, a long mane of dreadlocks, shendit loincloth, spreads his muscly arms wide and inclines his head and says, "I am Sakmist. I bid you welcome to Abju," which you also realize Abju translates to the Hill of Relics. In the temple, you see, surveying you as you approach, in our modern eyes, we recognize the following arisen. There is Bektamon, the light in the chamber. There is Sakmist, who introduced himself to you. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 arisen that you don't recall from any of your memories thus far. It's a collection of men and women that you don't have names for. They're arisen though. You also recognize Apep Medes in the crowd. So Sakmist spreads his arms wide, inclines his head, and says, "I bid you welcome to Abju." And that is where we're going to end the session.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we're going to pick up from there next time.
Risen Fest.
It's good to know the old Prince of Storms is still was knocking about back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Not yet the Prince of Storms, though. It's just Sakmist. Please.
He seems pretty chill, doesn't he?
Well, whatever's happened to make him more rowdy is obviously not happened yet. Well, thank you very much for running that.
He's with his arch enemy.
Yeah.
But they weren't arch enemies back then. Whatever caused them to hate each other hasn't happened.
Carthage is a long time from now.
So, all roads lead to Carthage, according to us.
If you keep going,
the shining road of the scarab leads inexorably to Carthage. When the walls fell.
Carthage, when the walls fell. Okay, with that, thanks for playing, and we'll
thank you for running it. Very much enjoyed it. Right, I'll stop the stream now.